that thing.
Cool.
Can I start with let's start over then.
Yeah, man.
3, 2, 1. Kareem, I'm not sure what your last name is yet, but full disclosure, we met like about a month or so ago, and I only got your first name, and I put it in my phone as Kareem Rasta.
Right.
And then that leads me to my first question is, are you a Rasta dude? Actually, it says Kareem Rasta dude in my phone, and what does that mean?
Well, I mean, you're on the right level. In my government name, it's Kareem. My liberty is Rastafari, which means, the acknowledgement, the liberty of knowing and hailing Haile Selassie I the first of Ethiopia as the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Conqueror, Lion of the tribe of Judah. So, it's more of a liberty of the King of Kings. So it's kind of like a good connection you made, knowing it or not.
Whoa. And that's the thing. I've seen, I guess ever since a kid, the Rasta personality, as it's been broadcast to American kids, is like a cool, like laid back, chilled, whatever goes. I don't want to mess with you. Don't mess with me. Is that my conception? That was my conception as a child, and I guess I've carried it through today. Is that about right? What you're saying? Well, the liberty? Are you saying liberty?
The liberty is your liberty, which means the way how you live. It's a way of life. So it's Livity, liberty.
Wow, I've never heard that.
So, more or less, on the far spectrum, Rastafari is universal. Rasta say I universal. So on that level, we are universal, worldwide. Rasta is all about one love, because one of the biggest prophets, the biggest message proclaimed out there is Bob Marley. The song One Love. So it's just basically telling you, Rasta came a long way, but yet still we're here for the people, regardless if the society accepts us, they reject us. We here to proclaim love universally.
Now, what about the Rasta life would be rejected by society? Is that just a misunderstanding about what the Rasta life is, and it's about love? I was waiting. I'm like, you're gonna say Bob Marley at some point, because that's a man who was just love. He was just singing about love.
Sure.
And what gets rejected of that?
Well, one of the things, to be Rasta, you don't have to smoke marijuana. Yet still, marijuana is form of a sacrament, a medium, a vessel to help you elevate your consciousness of the physical and the spiritual within yourself. The society now, even America and everybody around, now legalizing marijuana for economical purposes. And we see the medicinal purposes that they are distributing and manufacturing, but yet still the bigger spectrum is benefiting monetary wise. But on a Rasta level, we've been saying these things for years. So some people kind of now jumping on the bandwagon, you might say, because Rasta been using the herbs for a long time. We've been brutalized, we've been incarcerated, you know what I'm saying? We've been killed just for, as I say, our way of life. Secondly, Rasta is militant. Rasta fight against isms and schisms in the sense of the politicians and the world leaders, corruption. That's what Rasta fight against. We're not fighting against the physical man, but yet still the physical man stand within the vessel that we have to look forward to as a president, prime minister. They're in the seat of the high places, which mean that they govern the country, the states, the islands, wherever they're at. So which mean that corruption is going within their lifestyle, within their places. So we basically just we fight in corruption. So you cannot be of loving heart and still dealing with corruption in that sense.
Now, you hit upon politics of it, and,
Right.
and certainly being vilified and oppressed. I guess the target, that the easy way for the government to have done that for the last 50 years at least, is through the marijuana, right? Like, oh, look, they're bad guys. We can prove it because we made this plant illegal.
Right.
So you shouldn't listen to them. Like, oh, but they're only talking about love. Like, they're Bob Marley. There's guys. It's all about peace and love and unity. That's the kind of message I've always picked up.
Right, right.
But those whoever is in power, right? You know, whether it's, you know, you said prime minister, president, so that this is international, right? Are you talking like the islands and
Yeah, I'm talking
the UK and
over,
America?
World over, you know.
It's all the
Wherever
same.
Yeah,
We need to shut these people up,
right.
and putting them in jail and killing them and belittling them is the way to do it.
Right.
And you make a very good point. Just to circle back to the marijuana thing, because that is the first thing many people associate, right?
Right.
But how big of that, in being a Rasta man, is that the right way? A Rasta?
Yeah, man, Rasta man, Rastafari, the son of Selassie.
It's all good. It all works.
Yeah.
All right. So identifying with that lifestyle, because it's more than just, say, like in America or most of the world, it's I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but it's not exactly a whole lifestyle around it.
Right.
The feeling I get from the Rasta lifestyle is it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like you actually embrace. It's more than just it's beyond politics. It's with people,
Right.
and it's with your community, and it's about the achieve. I mean, you hit upon it. You said the elevating your consciousness.
Yeah.
Now, what other ways besides marijuana would a Rasta do that? Is it about making friends and pushing out love?
Making friends, also awareness, because first of all, you know, people might see me but don't understand or overstand me. I don't understand what Rastafari is because them see Bob Marley on a shirt or anything. Like most people, their concept of Rasta is weed. Weed is Bob Marley, or Bob Marley is weed. And then the connection just stopped right there. But as you say, it's a liberty. So what we do is Nyabingi, beat the drum, because every one of us, white, black, Indian, Chinese, are of African descent. So one thing the Rastaman do is to get in connection with the nature, get in connection with nature around you, not just the bird and the bees, but even the animals under the earth. You know what I'm saying? The rhythms of life, the synchronization of, you know what I'm saying, energy through the air that you don't feel. So Rasta is more on a deeper level. So the heartbeat, the drum beat. So to get that connection with yourself, even along sometime with the marijuana, just chanting and elevating, as I say, your sense of consciousness, making awareness. As we see, we love to sit down with every which one who really love to listen or is interested to know what Rastafari is, not just from a external physical point of view, but philosophies, the way of eating, our consciousness to our heritage and our culture. It just go miles, you know what I'm saying? Rasta very deep. Rasta is not just superficial when you check it out, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I guess we could contrast that with the politics, the liberal and the conservative. That's just a superficial level, like a tag, like a bumper sticker you put on. But it doesn't mean it doesn't really shape. I mean, it shapes some people's lives,
right,
which is kind of nonsense because that's a different domain. It's not even the Rasta life is a different domain. This is about people,
True.
right?
True.
Which I guess scares governments whenever there's a people movement. Now, with that, is there a leader in the Rasta world, or is it just a collection, a group of people that are all connected, or is there like a pope, I guess, of the Rasta world?
No, because the Pope is the stealer of Christianity. The Pope that we see today in Rome, they were not leaders of Christianity. Christianity started in Egypt. So, you look up to the Pope, or whoever look up to the Pope. As Rasta say, we bonfire upon the Pope, which mean that we, again, fighting down the Pope, because the Pope is all about corruption. He's the father of the world, yet still, in order for you to talk to God, because I don't see why, if you want to talk to God, or your father, let's say your father to be physical, and we taking it on the other level that God is our father. If you want to talk to your father, most likely you're not going to talk to your brother, to your mom, to everybody else to get to your dad. You're going to go directly to your dad. So, in the sense of the Pope and Christianity, if I got to talk to the guy who's right there that bleed and eat and do all kind of stuff, just like me, then I don't have to answer to that guy. I don't care if it's Benedict or John Paul or whoever it is. I don't answer like we equal. Yet still, Rastafari don't got no level of popery or any sense of that. But as I say, to be Rastafari is the recognition and the hailing of Rastafari, King Selassie I. King Selassie I grew up in Ethiopia, became governor at 12-year-old, Tafari Makonnen, and moved on into the ranks until he was emperor of Ethiopia, 1930, 2nd November. He was crowned as King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering of the tribe of Judah. Some people might say it's Jesus, or some people might say it's whoever.
A prophet type?
He's the King of Kings. So he bigger than the prophet. The prophet is the guy who come and proclaim. Just like Marcus Garvey did say. As Rastafari got a lot of leaders within. But if you kind of bypass His Majesty and go to the other leaders, then that's not how it works. Because you have to recognize Rastafari, King Selassie I, as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I mean, you don't have to. But if you're going to take on the Rastafari liberty, you cannot be in Rastafari liberty and say, oh, well, Rastafari is not the King of Kings, or I might say he's my God, or somebody might say something. But you have to have him on that pedestal where he's bigger than the Pope. You know what I'm saying? The God in flesh, the God in man. Not no invisible being, no thing I can't see.
He was a real person who walked on earth.
That walked on this earth, that hold these titles and lived the life and set the laws that as we know it today, the UN, the League of Nations. You know what I'm saying? So when Mussolini was fighting against His Majesty, 1935, you know what I'm saying? When all the leaders, England, everybody, at that point, France, Germany, because at that time Hitler was coming for the people of Europe. So some people didn't want to cross Hitler and go and fight for Ethiopia. But Ethiopia is the oldest monarch of life. Everything starts in Ethiopia. Everything starts in the Uganda and Somalian area. So the higher leaders know, and they know that what I know, that is true. That Ethiopia is a birthplace of every and all civilization. It's not Iraq, Mesopotamia, or none of those places. You know what I'm saying? So,
is that the Great Rift Valley that runs through Ethiopia? Is that where the cradle of civilization in Africa?
Nile. Well, when you hear about the Nile, the Blue Nile and the White Nile, it's that where life started from. You know what I'm saying?
The Nile being the source.
The source of life. The source to plants, the source to animals, the source to man. The source of life, because with the Nile come water, and with water come cultivation, and with cultivation come food. And with cultivation and food, society is built. And when society is built, after that it's all economics and high technology, which we had at that point, which is higher than now. as you could tell. So, you know what I mean? We coming from great civilizations. So,
And we keep forgetting that too.
Well, not we. Some people keep forgetting it because, you know, all these little trinkets that the same authorities have dazzled humanity eyes with, whether it be your physical eyes or your mental eyes, which is your third eye, then you're gonna get caught up. So when you got all these shows on TV and you got so much things to do right in front of you, you forget what is important. So along the way, it's not that you're not living a good life, but you could live a better life. You know what I mean? So it's
If
that
you,
thing.
by ignoring those things, those mouse traps that are put in our way, those little trinkets, like you said, those distractions, how do you keep yourself centered and on the ground? Because you work for a tech company that hooks people's things up, their trinkets up, right? Like you are helping distract people from the real world, right? How do you connect yourself with that reconnect to the real world?
You could say I distracted them, but yet still, I look at, I'm opening their eyes. I could give you the TV or the computer to operate, and you will operate as to what satisfies you. But there's better things to learn while you being kind of wobbling in the mess. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a pig. You put water and dirt right there, or you put a nice plush pillow and fruits and all of that stuff. He might eat the fruit, but after he's done, he's going in that mud. So even though they know comfort is there for them, even though they know the information is there for them to look at, they prefer looking at the memes or the whatever it is and the funny videos. And that's what I see again. The tools that we have, all the tools that we have in front of us, is for either the destruction of yourself or the building of yourself. Which one you going to choose? Because even though I give you a sword right now and I tell you kill yourself, and you don't want to kill yourself, you're not going to kill yourself. If you're pressured to kill yourself, that's something different. But you have the choices. So most of the time you think that you're not killing yourself by pushing the sword in yourself, but later on, the long run of you watching those funny videos and not watching what could benefit you in life, that's when it becomes destructive. So I give them the choice, just like they say God give you the choice to do good or bad. I give you the internet. Are you going to rob people of the internet, or are you going to look at some videos, you and your friends, so you could share with some other people and make a positive progress in life? You know?
I love that point. I love that point because this is something I've talked about recently. Like, actually, I've been talking about this for the past several years, how I feel technology has essentially saved my life.
Right.
Like, to your point, is I've been given this world, the world of YouTube, the world of unlimited information. No matter what I want, I can do, right? I can spend that time watching just silly nonsense, things that aren't educating myself, aren't good for me. It's basically just junk, right? Which is just everywhere. Like, you're constantly bombarded with that everywhere you look. And that's overwhelming for most people. And maybe it was a little overwhelming for me early on, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I'm like, what is all of this? Like, is it okay? This is just so much information. I actually, to this day, I've no Facebook, MySpace, all that stuff. When, you know, like early 2000s, late 1990s, I was never on Friendster or MySpace or Facebook, and still to this day. And I barely have an Instagram account. And I didn't start watching YouTube until about 4 years ago, just because I just saw what it was doing to other people. Right. And I actually had a BlackBerry, if people remember what BlackBerries are. I only got rid of my BlackBerry a year ago. Because I see, you know, people are down like this all the time. And I love people. Right. I love walking around and making eye contact and saying hi to people. And just kind of as an observer from the outside, I'm like, wow, this is really killing people. Like, they're just, but you go out to a restaurant now, how many people have their phone right here, or they're on it with somebody? And I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. And then I really took the plunge about 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm like, there's way more than just silly cat videos and just like, you know, things that are flashing and entertaining. It's supposed to be silly human tricks or whatever they are. I was like, there's some really educational, deep things out here. Like, you can just sit and listen to some really smart people with some very deep thoughts and new philosophies. I've learned more in the past 3 or 4 years than I think in the previous 20, just with that access of information. And for me, I think I'm the guy you're talking about. Like, but I don't know how many are like that, because you know, I have this conversation with friends all the time of like, hey man, like, put your phone away. Like, what are you doing? Like, how much TV do you watch? Like, you know, people love talking about new Netflix shows all the time, and just sitting there and watching TV for 3, 4, 5 hours. I'm like, well, isn't time valuable? Like, go for a hike in the woods. Like, that's beautiful time. Spend time with your family. Spend time meeting strangers. Strangers are dope, man. Strangers have stories. And you're right, it's a weapon. And in your life, what do you think you've seen? What's the ratio of people? You give them that sword, or you give that pig the water and the dirt, or you give them the pillow with the grapes on it. What do you see most people doing? Or what's the breakdown? Because in my life, I see most people just... they just waste their times and go down these rabbit holes, and they don't realize how much time they've wasted.
Yeah, and you know, it just to add to that is, even on the fact that they have this gadget in their hand, and the whole phrase, you got the world at your fingertips, but somehow they don't use the world. They probably use a speck of the world. They probably look at the whole internet from one angle. So they become even more daft, more dunce. And you would think you got the world at your fingertips, more connection, more constructiveness would be taking place. But it looks like you're distracted more. You know, your eyes hurt you more. You get headaches. You get whatever. So when you check it out, is my cry or my proclamation would be, get rid of all this stuff. How much people do your research from how many people were dying from house phones to cellular phones, whether it be by radiation, distraction while driving, go down the line. So it helps in a sense. Don't get me wrong. You could call somebody from around the world, but when you have a kid or people who forgot that they're driving, and now they texting, you know, swerving around lanes and doing all kind of stuff, then we got to either not make laws, because the laws is not stopping these things from happening. What really stopped the thing from happening is not having it. If you don't have something, you cannot do something with that thing you don't have to cause any damage. So if you don't have cellular phone, you would not be distracted by looking at your phone every time somebody texting you while you're driving. So it coming like it's useful on certain time, but it's more of a distraction.
I'm terrified of driving.
So
just a couple hours ago, earlier today, to your point, I'm sitting on Hoosick Street, and I'm sitting in my car just waiting to turn left, and all these cars are coming towards me. 2 separate cars. People's heads are down and almost are like, you know, they're only like 4 or 5 feet away from my car. Right. And I'm just sitting there like my foot is ready to hit the gas and my hands are on the wheel just in case one of these people don't look up in time. Because it's terrifying, right? And you drive around all the time in what you do. So you must see like these people all the time with their heads down. And you're like, people think they're slick, right? Like that. And I'm like, you're witnessing an addiction. And you're witnessing just something like you don't realize that you can kill people. This isn't what there's no way whatever there is worth what's happening out here. And there's like that disconnect between that virtual world and the world inside your head. That whatever your phones do, they make your brain happy. All those chemicals, those little dopamine or serotonin hits,
and endorphins and all.
Yeah, because it's designed to do that. Yeah. But you're forgetting about, there's this whole other world, and it's that I found in the past several years, I'm way more connected with nature ever since I started really getting on YouTube and paying attention a little bit more to social media. I'm like, okay, I can't forget that I live on a planet that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour going around a sun 88,000 miles an hour, which is like, dude, that's like, I checked it out. It was like 18 and a half miles per second you and I are moving right now around the sun. And then the sun is spinning in a like, all that's real.
Yeah.
Like, all that is very real. And 3 or 4 times a week I go with walks with my dog in the woods around here.
True.
Don't bring my phone. And I try to get lost a little bit. Like, I go off the trail just a little bit. And maybe sometimes I'm high with the marijuana, because it's like you feel that extra connection to nature. And it's that you guys discovered, the Rasta Lifes discovered that, like, forever ago. You guys have been preaching about it. And actually, one of my favorite lines in any movie was, you remember that movie I Am Legend with Will Smith?
True.
One of my favorite movies. And he's talking about Bob Marley in there, and he's telling that woman, you know, as Marley's playing in the background, he's like, you know, he literally believed you could inject love into people, and it would cure people, it would cure society, or something like that. And I was like, that is beautiful. Like, that's a beautiful thought. And I never heard Bob Marley expressed that way to me. It was always he just smokes pot, you know, like college kids hanging their posters of Bob Marley on their dorm room, and they don't really know why. It's just he's smoking weed, and so that's cool, right? And I'm like, oh no, this goes way deep. So I remember that movie. After that, I did a little research on Bob Marley. I'm like, oh, this is he was a fantastic human. Yeah. And then, you know, any other Rasta man I've ever run into, I'm like, these are great, chill people. Like, you could have a real conversation. They actually have something to say. Right. Now, is that something that you're raised at, like, your family? Did they say, hey, this is our society? Or is this something that you, like, is it like a religion in that sense? Like, hey, today we're hanging out with our Rasta friends. Or do you even know you're in the Rasta world growing up as a kid?
Well, you know, from Rasta level again, you know, when you look at it, every man is born Rasta. It's a manifestation within yourself. When you check it out, every man is born in the natural plane. You know what I'm saying? So it's you knowing within yourself, or finding God, or finding life within yourself. Because before I have to go to myself, you know what I mean? I got to basically stay within. So everything is a self manifestation before it manifests out. So within me, I got to know myself spiritually. I got to know myself physically. You know what I'm saying? Psychologically. I got to know myself. And not just get rant and rave and smoke weed just because I want to smoke weed and rebel and feel high. It's not really on that level. You get a reaction from the herb. You get a reaction from the plant. But at the end of the day, it's more higher meditation. Because when you see you on your level plane, well, you think normal. You smoke the healing of the nation, the brain food, as we call it. Then your mind and your thinking got elevated. You start thinking, I wouldn't say in the box anymore. You start thinking galaxy far wide. You start thinking the what ifs. You know, that's why the governments ban the herb, because them say now when you smoke herb, as Bob Marley said, it make you rebel. Rebel against what? You know what I mean? Against, as we say, corruption again, because then your eyes become open as to the wrongs and the rights. And then you have a conscience within you, but then smoking herbs elevate that conscience. So if I go killing somebody and I smoking herbs, deep down I know it's wrong. Now it's the herbs. Now after I smoke my herbs, I'm meditating like, okay, if it's something that genetically inclined in me, then I might just keep doing it. So the herb doesn't have an effect on me in that way, because genetically, let's say, coded generations before I'm coming from a line of so and so. So it's like, most likely, genetically wise, I'm going to do it. And I can change the way of it. But it's hereditary. How can you not be obese when everybody before you was obese? What are you going to do? You're going to have to change a lot of things about yourself. So, jumping from that, Rasta is not really, as I say, religion. Yet still, you could say the deification of your culture is religion. So, we live this thing. We don't have to go to church every Sunday. We don't have to, congregate in certain places. We as Rasta know, so the whole earth is sacred. The temples or so-called building that's been built, they're not more sacred than standing on the ground outside under a tree, talking and having the same conversation. You're not blocked by the breeze hitting your pores and your skin. You don't feel as hot as being outside versus in a building. I mean, no, we got AC and all of these things. Don't get me wrong. We're living in a modern world. But we see all of these things we got around us. They either make us sick, and a lot more things come with it. Cancer, you know what I'm saying?
And you're so distracted by everything else, you don't even realize how sick you are. That's what I think.
The doctor's happy.
Right.
The doctor's happy. So as we say, we as Rasta saying, live the life of eating from the earth, natural juices, natural shakes. Just eat natural and see the difference. Because when the doctor then go tell you that, okay, these herbs are these pills we made. We had to go far off in different countries and get with the natives. And all right, so if they're getting with the natives to get these plants, is it that you have to get to the natives or find some way to order the same plants these pharmaceuticals ordering to extract to make those pills? Because if they're using the plant to make the pills, might as well I get the plants. I don't need the pills. I need the plants.
Plants have been around millions of years. The pills, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it's like, what do you think is going to... What makes more sense? The thing you evolved with? The thing your ancestors evolved with? It's from the earth. It's natural. No man... It's kind of like you skipping the middleman. Like if you're describing the Pope as the middleman between you and a deity, whatever that is, it's the same as that. Like everyone wants to get in the way, right? Like somebody wants to get in the way in between you and yourself, your ability to elevate your mind. Like that's something I think I've accidentally been a Rasta man for most of my life. You know, you're talking about the connecting with yourself. The finding out who yourself is. That's what most of my, say, walks in the morning are about. It's like, I need to go get lost in the woods. I need to feel nature. I walk barefoot a lot, too. Like, hippies got a lot of stuff right, too. Like, it sounds like Rasta guys got a lot right.
Hippie and the Rasta man, I wouldn't say have the same mission, but have similar lifestyles. So, it's like, when you check it out, the hippie is like a white version of Rasta liberty in some sense. Yet still it's not about white on black, but just on that level, that they're not too far from the things that we do. They like to have nice concerts and love and all about the herb itself and nature and the spectrum of light and life. So Rasta is all about these things too. So when you check it out, they know the importance of botanics, the hippies. The scientists knows that too. And the Rasta being know that from day one. The Egyptians know that from how much thousand years ago. Even before any other form of civilization could have ever found themselves. We know who the Greeks call Asclepius, who is Imhotep. Imhotep is like the father of basically, not the one God idea. Before Imhotep there was one God idea, but he's like the the all-in-one, the high priest, the herbalist, the educator, the king, the God, in flesh, in man, manifested. So when you check it out, is the Greeks, the Romans, these people have emulated Egyptian liberty. Egyptian liberty, when you hear Osiris and Osar, in concept, they were from Ethiopia, who came down to Egypt to teach the Egyptians and other nations how to be civilized, writing, education, and so forth. You know, that unto Egypt and everywhere else dispersed. So we had people going to Mesopotamia, we had people coming to the Caribbean, we had people going to Europe, we got people going all over. You know, history will prove to you that, you know, herbal medicine been going on for thousands of years before the Greeks could have ever think who they were. Egyptians and Ethiopians been using herbs as a form of protection, food, medicine, you know, as I say, protection from evil spirits and whatever. Because in Africa you got different traditions. You know, so it's a lot, but it all comes down to the plant. So, you know, if something is using the plant or using a portion of the plant to make something that is chemical synthetic, I rather use the natural version before I try the synthetic version. You know what I'm saying? Because I know the full potential of life is in the plant. The monkey eat plants, the lion, the dog, the cat, the birds, the goats, the ants, name it. You know, we call ourselves needing protein. Where does the monkey and everything get their protein from? Do they kill each other or kill meat or go fishing? And no. So it means to tell you the protein that we look for, it's an illusion. Animal protein was made to being animals. Human protein of food is plants. Somehow we have escaped that liberty and extended out to meat, fish. But the scientists today and yesterday will show you that eating fish, meat, and all these other dairy, eggs is not good for you.
Yeah, the more information we get every day, that's one of the YouTube brilliances of YouTube. It's like, oh, all the stuff that you're sold is good for you, not so much. Like plants are the source of life. Is that what I'm gathering from you?
Plants is the source of life.
Now,
you know, apart from the sun, really, which gives the plant it energy to photosynthesize. But yet still we assuming that the sun is already there. So the sun is there and the plant, because we cannot eat the sun. We can only absorb the rays. We could eat the plants. And from the plants we get our energy, we get our vitamins, we get our minerals. You know, so that's where we get our energy from, the plants.
You're giving me several questions I'm working on here. Let me start with this one then. So the Rasta lifestyle is, you know, and it's a great simple philosophy. In my mind, I mean, it's clearly not simple. Of course, right. You're going back to, you know, Egypt and Ethiopia and many things that I've never heard of, and I'm gonna have to look up when if I rewatch some of these parts, some of these king names and some of these historical references. But from what I'm hearing from you, it's about nature. And it's about people, or more specifically, you as a person.
It starts within you first.
So how do you find that person? Is it through nature that you discover that person inside of you?
A little piece of it, because within nature, it opens you up. It helps you. If you look at a butterfly, if you look at a bird, that's where man got inspiration from. So now we got the big jumbo jet and he invented that. But that guy who invented that plane was at some point looking at something, a bird or something at flight, and figured, ooh, what if I made something like this? How can I keep it propelled in the air? So when you hear about the Wright Brothers is just yesterday. Yesterday, I don't want to take the credit from certain people, but you know what I'm saying? As I tell you, most of the inventions that we have today, these things were thought about thousands of years. But our people knew that with doing those things, repercussions going to follow. So it's, you know, you can build this invention, but if you know it's going to kill 1,000 people, it's like, oh man, this thing it looks so cool, but when I build it, it's going to kill 1,000 people. It leaves you now to say, forget it, I'm just going to build it anyway.
We can't help ourselves as humans, right? Like, we can't help ourselves, right? Like, I have to build it. Well, it's the same thing with the internet, right?
So,
like, we have to it's going to cause a lot of damage and a lot of confusion, and it's going to cause pain and it's suffering. People, it certainly has an effect on our society, but we have to do it. We have to go forward with it.
Somebody get a joy off of it, because now the government can look at you. It's not just you anymore. The internet becomes the internet becomes something for them to look at you now, because if they don't have the internet, they cannot keep track of so much of people at one point in time. It's too hard to go out there and do a survey count at every house. But if you hook up to the internet, I could hook you up via phone. I could send bugs through your computers. I could basically destroy your life by being thousands of miles away. You know what I'm saying?
And we know this isn't paranoia. It's real. And a guy like Edward Snowden in the past, 4 or 5 years ago, and still he's like, guys, this is real. The government is lying to you. They're really coming after you. They're tracking you. And for what? For what? Like, that's where it gets a little sneaky and a little scary, right? It's like
control.
Right. You circle back to what you said about we've known for thousands of years looking at the butterfly or a bird and wanting to fly, and we knew that we know for sure there were thousands or millions of people thousands of years ago that looked at those things like, I want to do that, I want to do that. And we get those stories, right? Like the flight of Icarus or Icarus. It's one of those legendary stories. I don't know if that's Greek, but I'm sure the actual story predates Greek history, because the Greeks, like you alluded to, they kind of took some of those either Egyptian or Mesopotamian or ancient Sumerian stories and just kind of repackaged them.
Yeah.
The flight of Icarus is one of those. He made wings and he was trying to fly to the sun, and he attached those feathers on him using wax, and he flew too close to the sun, and the sun melted the wax and he fell to the earth. And it's one of those mythological lessons of, hey, sure, you're going to figure out how to fly an airplane or whatever thing. Like you said, we just create things. We can't help it. And it's going to kill 1,000 people. Like, it's not good. Like, we use these airplanes for the Wright Brothers. We use those airplanes for war. The reason airplanes really took off, so to speak, is because, World War I, World War II, and it's all military based. And it's like, these things are they're weapons in the wrong hands. Yeah. And that's kind of that lesson, the flight of Icarus. Like, sure, you're going to fly, but there's something to pay for it. There's sins to pay for it, for trying to fly like the bird, especially when the wrong people are in control. If that's kind of it's something like that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's something like that, I think, is what you're hitting on there. So it's always I'm getting really sold on this Rasta life, man. Like, I'm seeing a lot of connection to nature, and connection to yourself. And then, do you try to? Is it kind of like, people like to say, especially in the last several years, you hear this expression a lot: be the best version of yourself. Is that kind of what that is? Like, show yourself to the world using the principles of the Rasta life to show the world, hey, this is the best version. I'm trying to be the best version of a human that I can be.
But in that sense, but bigger than that, because even before you proclaim to the world that you have gone through phases of life, of humanity, different tiers, different degrees, that you find yourself, no, you conscious about yourself. So when somebody come and say something, that you went out there, do your research, you know who you are, you know what your heritage is, you know what your history is, you know who wiped out your history and repainted the history. Now, don't go with the 400-500 years of philosophies that we've been retaught and relearned and incorporated through academics and so forth. No, we need to know that, yeah, when we go in the tests and they ask us certain questions, this is the answer they require from us, because we in their society, and in order for you to get the right answer, this is the way they work their society. So I went to college, so I got to put the right answer that the book says. But beyond the book, I can tell them that atoms, alchemy come from Egypt again. So when you tell me about chemistry and biology and all of the heart and the heart is a pump and all of the people been doing that thousands of years. So that's what I'm saying again, is if I don't know that, I'm going to be fond of Einstein and Pasteur and all these scientists, Sigmund Freud, all of these guys of yesterday, and forget the real doctors that inspired Sigmund Freud and people before him to even re-look, re-study, try to find out what those people were about. So give appreciation for the modern scientists. But as I say, I was a scientist before they even thought about being scientists. So when I say it's knowing yourself and being the better of yourself and the world seeing you out there, it's not being a follower of society. It's standing out. When 1,000 people going left, you got to know, okay, they satisfy with that ideology. I could try to get like a couple hundreds to not go left by teaching them, hey, before these things were here, this is how it was. And because I might be Rasta or might be of my nature, and I'm not a doctor or I don't have a PhD, then it doesn't influence them as much. So they be like, yeah, whatever, man. Because the doctors say so, the stats prove that. But the stats is just a subset of population. So when you find doing different studies out there, a study was done on 2,000 people. The world got billions of people. So how can 2,000 people be inferential to billions of people? So it's just a test to show you that what might happen, what might not happen on an average of 2,000 people. And those people could only be truly of that population because it's those people you tested. So if there was one person out of that population, it doesn't really apply to that one person. It applies to those people that was tested. So people get misconstrued through stats, through studies, because the doctor says so, the PhD guys, and we find most of the PhD guys, the anthropologists, archaeologists, all of those guys, through history, either linked up stories because they could not join up history to give a satisfaction to mankind. And then in the end, either on their dying bed or years being asked and pressured about it, they folded and be like, hey, you know what? It wasn't real. We just made up a story. Hieroglyphic story. All of these story right here, you could look it up and realize, like the hieroglyphics, man have not unflipped a little titty bit of what the hieroglyphics really saying. But can we just rig up something? Because when the French guy went to read the hieroglyphics, it took him how much weeks to figure out one thing. And by the end of the year, he could have done so much more. So he was just basically just crafting it up, linking it as we go along. And I can't remember his name at this point, but
one of those French Egyptologist guys.
Egyptologists.
Yeah, would that have been like in the 18-somethings or
1820s?
1820s, 1830s. Here, I have several. I love some of the points you just made, and I have some questions on those and some points, but you keep going back to Egypt and hieroglyphs, and I just recently finished. It was a long book. It took me probably about 4 months, maybe 5 months, maybe even 6 months to read. I was reading it intermittently. I read like 5 or 6 books at the same time, so it takes me a while sometimes to finish books. And it was this book about Egypt and the Great Pyramids and all of this. Basically, this guy, Graham Hancock, wrote the book, and he just kind of dismissed all modern Egyptologists' interpretations. He's like, these things are way older. These things are vast vessels of knowledge, and we don't know exactly what the Sphinx is, what the Great Pyramids are. There's some of the other. He actually mentioned a couple in Ethiopia, I think, and different parts of Egypt. What do you think, and what does maybe the Rasta culture believe that the pyramids are? Like, what are those things? Like, and why were they built? Do we really think that they're only 4,000 or 5,000 years old, or we think they're way older than that?
Well, one of my role model that I found to be true to the Abyssinian, Alkebulan, African heritage is Dr. Ben Buchanan. Dr. Ben Buchanan, started off as a, let's say, field man in African Egyptology. He was like the first black man, let's put it that way, to do archaeologists and dig up and find out his history, and because he himself is of Ethiopian heritage. Spanish Ethiopian heritage. So Dr. Ben, he got so much accolades, I could not even call him up. It's like you would need
brilliant man.
Yeah. Brilliant. And through the years, he have done tours, he's passed on now, but his legacy lives on through people like me who have never been to Egypt yet, but have listened to Dr. Ben and his prolific lectures and researches that he's done. And he's just wanted to know that, people look at the pyramid as the afterlife or the other world for the pharaohs. Other people came with the whole premonition of, it was made for acoustic sounds. Some people even say that it was to show majesticness of the kings and their power. It's just so much being said. What is true, we really don't know. And that's the power of the whole thing, is that we see these things that were built by these people. But even as we so more technologized, and we are now smarter, that we build in smart TV, but the TV cannot do nothing without you tell it to do something. So we actually, as I say, we're not intelligent like we think we are. We need to somehow reconnect with those people to really find out what the pyramid was all about. Osiris, Osar, and Ra, and all these gods and goddesses that we hear about, even in Greek mythology, Zeus, and all of these people that we keep hearing about. Because to some people they're stories, they're myths. To some people they're real. And that's when, chaos is a thing that the world leaders know how to build.
We're very good at that.
Yeah, they know the real story, but they will give you, as you say, package deals of the real story that to make it yours. Just like you say, the Greek and the Romans kind of took African stories and just renamed them and repositioned them, like Zeus and Jesus and all of these things, and Mithras, and twisted up.
Right.
So now we don't know if they worship in Jesus, Mithras, Zeus. It becomes complicated. But the people of those days, we could only reconnect with them. Like in the physical or some sort, which is like kind of impossible at this point of our life. But that's the only way we're going to, because as scientists tell you, in order for you to know your future, you need to know your past. And that's why we so lost, because we don't know our past. And even though we study and you find scholars and you find educated so-called geniuses, and they cannot decode the laws of life. They cannot decode the powers of life. They cannot stop mankind from dying. They cannot stop none of this stuff. So how educated are we when those people before sustained life in a better setting? They didn't have all this so-called amenities that we have now. All this luxury, all this stuff.
We think we're so smart because we have all of this. And to your point, I feel dumb. I feel so dumb that I don't know anything. And I'm like, what you just said, like, we don't know anything because we really don't know our past.
No.
So how the heck do we know where we're going? Like, it feels like we're on a ship without a rudder, or a really crappy rudder at that.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very confused rudder. It's like, go this way. No, go that way. Go left, right. Like, that's what the world feels like to me. And it comes back. I love history, and you obviously love a lot of history, and you follow it. You know your history, and you go way back, apparently, deep to all these, connecting these deep mythologies across these vastly old cultures, and we still don't understand. Like, we think we're just hearing stories,
right?
But it's like, how many of these things are just been retranslated and mixed and forgotten, and we only have pieces of it and repackaged, and it's like it's not a clear picture of our past, and that's scary, because we just want to ignore everything, say, before 2,000 years ago, maybe even more recent. We're like, they were living in caves, right? Let's not talk about it. Let's not even try to figure out what those ancient Egyptians were doing. Let's just say it's a tomb, even though there's no tomb room in there. Right. There's never any treasures found. These things we know have been sealed up, and the Sphinx has water wear on it from rain that could have only been caused by rain. Right. And the last time it was raining in Egypt was like over 10,000 years ago or 15,000 years ago. And it's like, no, that's too complicated. Let's not go down that route. Let's just say it's a tomb. Let's say these pharaohs built it, and that's it. And then we're smarter than them, right? We're smarter than them. I don't feel smarter than them. The more I learn about Egyptians and these gods and the Osiris and Ra, and I'm just like, and even Mesopotamian Sumerian texts, I'm like, I feel like there's so many lessons that you really got to, it takes a while to think about them. It's not like a one and done. It's like years and years and years and years of reading and listening and thinking about, like, what do these stories mean? What were these people trying to communicate? Why are the pyramids there? Is that a message? Is it a warning? And it always comes back to like life lessons is what I see. I'm like, they're trying to talk to us, but I don't know how we hear them.
But you see, everything is astrologically, celestially inclined. Like just like them say, just like in heaven, just like on earth. So when you check it out, it's the astrology that make everything revolve, make the moon, make the tides come. You know what I'm saying? The sun cause evaporation and rain back to the earth again. So everything, as you see, just like in heaven, just like on earth. So that's just what we need to over us. It's a one world, one connection. Everything is connected within itself. Whether you want to see it that way or not, whether somebody agrees with it or not, that is not the main point. But when you see that things are telepathic, I was just gonna say that. Do you think that's coincidence? No, that's laws of life. That's the electricity flowing from your body, flowing through the ethers and going and hitting somebody else's body and communicating with them, even by not talking.
How often do you see that in your life?
It's like more, I wouldn't say an everyday thing, but it's more often than often itself.
so much that it doesn't even surprise you, I bet.
Then
It's
it
like,
just-
oh,
yeah.
I accept this is the world, and I don't know what that means, but it means something.
It's unexplainable
Yeah.
to you. It's like, oh, I was just about to say that. It's unexplainable. And that's why they use the term like great minds think alike. But it's greater than the great minds. As I say, it's messages sounding like right now, all around you, all around me. It's just a lot of messages being emitted out because our body is an electrical source. And electricity finds positive and negative. So in my body I have positive and negative. In somebody else's body I have positive, negative. And then positive and negative charge. Just like in chemistry, oxygen and hydrogen attracts. So you find oxygen out there in the air, hydrogen out there somewhere. Boom. You know what I'm saying? 2 H's and an O, we get water. But it's not water in the sense, it was atoms that came together and make the whole sense of water. So the connection that we're not even seeing happening every second as we go along.
Are you talking about like a psychic connection?
Not just psychic, on the physical.
A metaphysical connection?
In that sense.
That's creating water. My energy is meeting your energy or someone else's energy out there, like atoms, like your H and your O's, and they connect and they create something.
In that sense, but even with your breathing out, you breathe CO2 out. It's carbon, oxygen molecule. Okay? There's other elements floating in the air that we don't see. So it's not even coming from us first. It's in the air. The air hits you and transmits certain messages from one body to the next. So that's when you say, how did you think that I didn't touch you, I didn't secret to you in your air, I didn't do none of that to you, but how we thinking the same thing. And we haven't been sometimes taught to think that way. It's just like you think, it's a coincidence. It's not. It's all this higher metaphysical, as you say, happening that even me, myself, probably couldn't even explain it to you on that proper level because it's happening and we don't know it happened, but it happens. But we would want to put some form of satisfaction as to how it happens because that's mankind. You don't know how it really happens. Let's just get a theory and get close to the whole science, So,
we want simple answers. And that's an incredibly complicated thing. I don't know how hard it is for you to have these conversations with people, but I love this sort of thing.
Right.
Like I absolutely hear everything you're saying. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be thinking about this all the rest of the night. But how hard do you find it is to just to communicate these ideas to people? Because for most people, these thoughts never cross their minds,
right.
And that seems like a problem because the world is very, very, very complicated and unknown. And it's way beyond that first level of superficiality, right? Like we're just dudes sitting here wearing clothes. This is the color of our bodies. This is what our voices sound like. That's all very superficial.
Right.
There's so much going on in here. And to your point, astronomy, astrology, like what is happening in the galaxy? Like it just keeps going. Like we don't think about that enough. Like people don't even want to talk about that, let alone metaphysical. I love how you explain that the atoms meeting like that, and I'm definitely gonna be thinking about that later. About we just accept that these psychic connections or metaphysical connections, they just happen. Like I was just thinking that because it happens to me all of the time, and this has been a lifelong thing for me. And I've been with my girlfriend for about 20 years now, and over those 20 years since really we started dating, I would tell her, I was like, sometimes I'm just really tuned in. And over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I just feel more and more and more tuned in. And I don't even know what tuned in means, but she starts to see it when I tell her things. I'm like, hey, I was just thinking that, hey, don't tell, like, because it kind of freaks you out, which is probably why people don't like talking about it, because it scares them. But it happens to me all of the time, where whether it's a text to a friend, like just words, just I can't even recall how many times it happens and give specifics because they're too weird to even talk about. But you see that in dreams. And, like, what's a dream? Like, there's that. There's, like, I don't know. I don't want to digress
Because
too
then-
much here
then you
because this
would
is so hard to it's so hard to articulate
Right.
something that you can't see and you can't our understanding is limited by our language, and our language isn't sophisticated enough to explain what we're even thinking or what is even possibly happening. So we use metaphors a lot. I could tell you're a metaphor guy, and that works. Metaphors are great.
Metaphors, similes, that's the way basically you can make comparisons to certain things. Because you're only human, but how can you be on that metaphysical level? It's like, hey, I am God. Somebody be like, no, you're not. Like, God is somewhere up there. But that simile showing that I am God, it doesn't mean that the God that somebody might know or think of, that's the God I'm talking about. Because when I say God, God is just guidance of diversity. That's what the acronym, or one of the acronyms of God.
Guidance of diversity. I've never heard this.
Which is the governing of all the laws, the guidance of the diverse earth. So, you know what I'm saying?
Wow, that's beautiful.
Which is the laws of the earth. So when you're looking for a God, some guy sitting up in heaven or some guy up there, it's like, you're going to sit there for at least the next how much a years you actually live, because you will never see him. Your parents have never seen him, and they call on him every day. My parents call on him, and then he never came to their rescue. Black people being slave. The Bible being used to slave black people. The Bible being used that the master should take care of his slaves. And, you know what I'm saying? I don't see God coming and help no black people at that time in slavery to get out of sufferation. Dear God at that time was the white man, not being racist, but dear God at that time was the white man. He tell them when to eat, when to go to the bathroom, when to stop working. And basically that's what he did. He governed their daily lives. He was the one that they look up to. They cried to some God, help us, whatever, but he never came. So at the end of the day, I'm not waiting for that God. I create the God, or I am the God within me. The self-manifestation of yourself, again, knowing your kingship and your godship within you. Because when you check it out, this, as we say, Horus and Osiris made their sun god. That now Jesus became Horus. You know what I'm saying? Mary become Isis.
Isis, right.
So when we check it out, as I say, we got to know what we know, because we've been kings and queens from a long time. So we not going back and just starting slavery or God help us, whatever it is. We past that now. It's Marcus Garvey, and so we're dealing with where Marcus tell you, say, hey, you have to know yourself. And the most dangerous, Malcolm X tell you too, one of the most dangerous time of his life in society with the authorities was when he gained his self-consciousness. Wasn't when he was going to jail and doing petty robberies. And soon as he started knowing himself, he became a danger to society. You know what I'm saying? Muhammad, all of them wanted to kill him. Because now he doesn't want to go with Muhammad anymore. He doesn't want to be with Farrakhan. He doesn't want to be with none of them. Because he get to find out what they dealing with. He's not on that level. He's on a higher level. And they tell him, hey, slow down. And when you know what you know, you got to get the news out there to people, because you don't know how soon somebody's going to try to take you down. You know what I'm saying? Just like JFK. JFK linked with Rastafari.
There was a lot about JFK that we don't even know as Americans.
But what I'm telling you is he was in connection with Emperor Selassie I. The Vatican never loved that, because when the Vatican called for JFK and go ask him, okay, are you dealing with the American Republic or are you paying patronage to Rome? He said he's dealing with the American Republic. So which means that he doesn't have to answer to Rome when the crucial time comes. Because you know Rome is the one that, America is like a Rome. Rome lives through America right now. That's why you see Trump and everybody might love him, but it's a different from the Masons and the Jesuits. So it's an internal battle that we don't know that they're fighting amongst themselves to gain courtship and to gain kingship and to gain order and to gain authority. But it's not theirs to start off with. So all of these things that they doing, it doesn't really faze me. I'm not inclined with their society. I'm not inclined with this society in the sense of living through their laws and through their man-made laws. Yet still, I got to abide in society. But me as a man, knowing myself, I don't wait for the Constitution to tell me that my God-given right or my right as a man on earth, my birthright, what I own, you know what I'm saying, which was declared in 1947, human rights. So if you know your human rights, and a man don't even have to write your human rights for you to know your human rights. You were born with these rights. And they know from a sovereign level that they have to respect your rights. But if you don't know that, what your right is, somebody can impede on your right any minute, any time, because you're not conscious of it. But if they bring it to you and be like, hey, no, slow down. Okay, we're going to do this the right way. These are my rights, and right now you're invading on my rights. I'm not being a disturbance to society or anybody around me. I'm not endangering anybody. I'm not endangering myself. You know what I'm saying? So these set of rights that you have will be taken away from you. Just like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, all of these guys knew their rights.
Does this hit upon they believe that they were their own gods, essentially. Like, they understood themselves. Like, I don't need society's laws or rules to dictate who I am. Is that kind of what it is? Like, Thomas Jefferson, the founding fathers, right. Like, they wrote, these truths we hold to be self-evident. Like, I know that these I have my human rights. And whether you write it down on a piece of paper or not, I know these things to be true. Is that kind of what, like, Malcolm X kind of was divorcing himself from the Nation of Islam and all that? He's like, I don't need that to guide me anymore. Right. I know who I am. He found his rudder, essentially.
He found, as you say, he found his essence. He found himself. And within finding yourself, whether you Islam, you Catholic, Christianity, or you Judaism, whatever you are, it doesn't... Religion is just segregation of people finding themselves naturally. So it fights you when you go to Catholic, Anglican, because then you're saying God, you're saying Jesus. Then why don't we just break down all these buildings, build a big building where everybody can just come and say God and Jesus? Because we all got different perspective as to what and who Jesus is, what God is, who God is. But we calling God, we saying amen after our prayers. Why don't we just figure this thing out and everybody come and say God and amen and Jesus and Mary and all these people, Abraham and Moses, they all calling the same people, but they all have their so-called denomination, because now me and you mightn't think right in the whole form of Catholicism that I'm going to build my section of Catholicism and I have my sect of Catholicism. Yes, we're still Catholics thinking two different things, which is a kind of counteraction of any progress, because you got a force moving one way and a force moving the other way. It's only bringing resistance.
Right.
How can we go in the same direction? And that's what the whole form of, money and all of this power and all of these hidden agendas kind of restrict our willingness to do these things, because we know the world will tell all we need is love. Oh, we just need to love each other. Everybody says that. Come on, help me out. Can we do it? And It becomes difficult when it's time to put in the work. But we know the thought. We know what it would take to have a better world, to have a less violent world. poor people out there. The government takes people money every day. Yes, and the people that been paying taxes for centuries, hundreds of years, some of them, their children and them lose out. Because then to get some doctor look at you again, you have to pay another money with tax being on it again. Then they tell you they're building the road, they're building this, then they're going to wars, and the people within their own society not benefiting off their so-called tax money. It's just a scheme. Insurance, all of that is a scheme of the people themselves, and the people them don't realize it, because everything a man will tell you, well, that's what the law say. I mean, who write the law? Another man who have his own hidden agenda, his own biasness, his own way of looking at things. He didn't look at it through my perspective, but yet still the law is written from his perspective and some other people around the table, not considering how is it going to affect some other people who was not at the table. So if the government said, oh, the people is the government, why don't, before they do anything, consult the people? If the people is the government, then we have a vote. Who wants to go to Iraq?
Not me. Not me.
Then there's no war.
My brother went twice. It really sucked, and it was pointless. Yeah, or just any war. Insert war here.
Yeah,
insert bullshit war here. We probably don't want to do it.
So
we don't. Hey, if I run for politics any day, you want to be my running mate? Because change this whole damn thing. That's the only way I would ever run for political office. Is just like, no, if you guys vote for me, I'm changing this entire thing.
The thing about the politics and the White House and the Congress is, even as you have the president, he still got to call through the bureaucracy of the system, still have to call on other people, because now what you got to realize is, if Trump has a paycheck, somebody have a paycheck, which means he's working for somebody. If I'm paying you and you're the president, come on, buddy, you got a boss.
Come on, man.
I'm the boss.
Right.
So you're not seeing me, you're seeing Trump, or you're seeing Obama, you're seeing Papa Bush, you're seeing Young Bush, you're seeing Clinton, you're seeing all of them. But at the end of the day, they're getting a paycheck. So there's some other people up there that we don't see. They call them the 1%ers, or, you know what I'm saying? They call them whatever.
The Rockefeller, the hidden people, the Freemasons.
Freemasons. But they're not really Masons, because it's just a tifa of my culture again. Because in order for you to be a true Mason, you got to be initiated from an Egyptian standpoint. It's me who start Masonry.
Is that with the sources?
Europe, yeah, it wasn't Europe or none of them who start Masonry. So, and they know that too. They know the Rockefellers, how you call them? The Rockefellers, Bill Burgers, and all these guys.
The Vanderbilts. Yeah.
All
the
these
first
guys.
the first extremely wealthy people in the world.
When I say the first, when you say the first, because guess what? No.
Well, our world.
In this world.
In our industrialized world.
Because when we about the richest people and we don't talk about Mansa Musa and them guys, then we're not talking about richness. Because even Mansa Musa, even right now with Bill Gates and their money, they're still struggling to catch his richness. They're still struggling to catch, and I'm saying Mansa Musa richness, because Mansa Musa was the richest man, you know what I'm saying, to ever show face on the earth. And he did it through certain ways of just basically, you know what I'm saying, harnessing his own local resources, and even doing business out there with spices and different things to the Indian route, and you know what I'm saying, up to the Mediterraneans and stuff. So, you know, very intelligent guy, built Timbuktu and all the colleges out in Timbuktu. And
it was really, just...
So, you know what I'm saying? These things, as we talking about, it's history, but it's still right now, because in order for us to understand ourselves, we got to understand these things. And I'm not just talking because I can talk and I've researched these things, but it's because now the confidence in me to even sit down and talk to you and, you know, make thousands of people or hundreds of people hear these things, it's like them got to be enlightened. Buddha just mean enlightenment. It doesn't mean nothing else. Oh, Buddha, it's just being enlightened. So all these people that came 400 or 500 years ago, I said blessings to them, but we have to go back to Ethiopia. We have to go back to Africa. And we got to accept it, because if we don't accept Ethiopia, Africa, as the cradle of civilization, then the whole world is confused. Because when scientists telling you, say, the white man got black in him, this other man got black in him, then it's simple for us to now start to say, okay, let's kind of decrease hatred. Let's kind of exterminate all these negative stuff. Because if I'm from this person and you saying that I'm a child of that man, then why all this racism and all this conflict within? Because when you check it out, it's brothers and sisters and cousins fighting amongst themselves. It's scientists telling you, well, you came from black people, the Chinese man from black people, the Muslim guy from black people, then technically we are fighting ourselves if we don't see it like that. But that's how I see it. It's bloodline fighting themselves, trying to be dominant over what? Gold, diamonds, and so-called the sense of power. Because when you really look at Earth, is we don't need to be president, we don't need to be all these things. We don't need diamond, we don't need gold, all of these other things. Just what we need, essentially, for the necessity of life: food, clothes, and shelter. And with that, we could do wonders. We don't need a cellular phone. We don't need all of these things that we forget at home and we feel like, oh, what's going to happen? I grew up as a kid, making my own toys, not having to go to Walmart with my son nowadays. Every time he wants a toy, that's one of the first places I go, Walmart or Toys R Us. Back in the day, we made our own bikes, from the frame down to the rim, down to the ball bearings, the S-cranks. We basically dismantled bikes and rebuilt them. Like, we did our own things, as little children growing up. It's
you talk about food. We need food, shelter, clothing, whatever. But we need that cooperation too to solve problems. Like you're building your own bikes. Okay. We need to make toys. We need to make transportation, whatever it is, our own food. We need to cooperate to figure out these problems, because problems are inevitable.
Yeah.
Like someday an asteroid's going to hit this planet again, and I hope we're in a position where we're cooperating enough and not having like, oh, you're Chinese, or oh, you're black, or oh, you're Muslim, or I hate all of you, I can't get along with you guys. Like, we need to get together real quick to be able to figure out. I don't know if it's gonna be our lifetime, man, because it's kind of messy. It feels messy and we feel really confused, but we need that to understand, like, hey, the problems are coming. Like, what happened to these Egyptians? Those civilizations are, where are they?
I mean, when you check it out,
something happened to them.
Mankind wipe out themselves. Because now we want to say alien, we want to say this. An alien is not a weird looking figure. An alien is just somebody who comes from a next place. You know what I'm saying? So I'm an alien in America. Do I look disfigured and green? And no. So these words that we use and put pictures to it and symbolizes in different ways over time teaches the generation this is how an alien looks. But what is the meaning of an alien? Let's go to the etymology of the word alien and we'll find out it's nothing of no creature. It's just a person, animal, something that is not indigenous to wherever you at this point in time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we call everything an alien fish, an alien plant. Yeah, you're right. I love etymology. That's one of my favorite words because it's about words, and I love words.
It's a foundation of words. You know?
So Kareem, if we're trying to enlighten people, if that's the Rasta life, and it's certainly what I pick up off of you, is you want to spread that enlightenment.
True.
Like, how does someone get to, like, walk me through a little bit of a day-to-day, a week-to-week discipline that you have, because all these things that you can talk about, that you can't be watching too much TV and spending a lot of time doing nonsense stuff to be able to accumulate this amount of information and being able to articulate it. So what is that, I guess, your advice, or just what is your system for being able to try to reach this level of enlightenment and have this information and try to just figure out the puzzle of life.
You see, we would never figure out life, but what would make us content within ourselves and as a nation is sharing knowledge with people. And it's a journey. It's a journey where you got to find yourself out of the rubbles, out of the things that you've been taught as a child growing up. How are you so sure about the things that you've been taught? Because somebody has taught you. Have you ever questioned or looked at it from a different angle? You know what I'm saying? Why would my oppressor give me knowledge to my benefit? So when I start thinking within myself, it makes me be grandier. Now, in order for you to be on that journey, you got to look at other people. You got to compare people life. You got to suck out different energies, positive energies that you get from different people. You got to be out there reading. You got to be out there communicating, having conversations with people that you think it's on a higher level or on a high level. Get knowledge. It doesn't mean because you say one thing that you tell me that I suck it in. I suck it in, then go home. Get to my books. Get to Google. And I'm not just looking 1 or 2 Google videos. If it takes me 4 or 5 hours to get an understanding of one ideology, and when I learn one ideology, along the ways you get other words. I want to learn that new word. I pick up my dictionary. So it's a lot of, you find yourself looking one topic up, but 5-6 hours, you find yourself probably researching 5 different 6-7 topics. So if you, an absorbent, you spongy in that sense, you like to absorb, then that society is a good society for you to join, where you just pick up your book, pick up your computer, and look at words you never heard of. Pseudo. What somebody might say, what's a pseudo? Okay, you might know what pseudo means. Pseudo, it looks real, but it's not. So at the end of the day, it's all these words, and then you start finding the etymology of where they come from the Greek, meaning of this and that, and learning a little bit of Latin here, and it just becomes so grand that, and if, as I say, you got to want to do these things. It's not something that you just, as you say, sitting down on your couch all day. You would know the best movies, Commando, Rambo, all the 5-6 versions. But
Commando, that's like 1985.
Way back.
Is that the last movie you watched?
No, not really. But first thing that came up to mind. But even though it was so bad, we could still remember certain lines. You know what I'm saying? Terminator and all of this stuff. Because as children growing up, we emulated those movie star people. But they weren't on that level of life that we thought. So now we grow older now, we want to find ourselves. We want to know what our culture is. We want to know what the truth is. Not your truth, not his truth, but the ultimate truth amongst the truths. You know what I'm saying? So you got to start looking deep. It's just like you want to get a bachelor's or PhD. Don't go at the bar every night, you get your homework, and to do a research paper and think like, magically in the morning when you wake up, there would be a 5-page paper on your desk waiting to give your professor and everything like. You got to put in the work. You got to read 20, 30 different books and find references that makes up your thesis. You know what I'm saying? To support your thesis of where you're going and which direction you're heading with this paper. So you got to put in the work. It cannot be explained any more far-fetched, but you have to be willing to do that. And if you're not willing to do all of that, then a next way to do it is to educate yourself with other people. Because one of the things I learned in college is, if you're smart, you got to link up with somebody as smart as you or smarter if you want to pass the class, obviously. So I got discipline on my education, or basically my way of looking at information. So I don't go for the first thing I hear. I go deep. So don't tell me something and feel like, oh, well, it's all done and said. I might not come back to you and refute what you said, but most likely if I go home and do my research and I see what you're saying made sense but it was not factual, then I got to tackle you back to reinform you that, you see, when we're talking about so and so, from their point you were making sense, so you were right, but when you went onto the other tangent, it was far off. And the understanding of how you getting the information and how I getting it again is perspective, but the person who's writing the information, who's recording the information, they doing it on a factual level. So it doesn't matter how much we read and understand the story differently. We got to ask the writer then, what did he mean by that? It's just like having a poem and be like, oh, what do you think of the poem? And the whole class got 20 different perspectives of one poem. Well, let's call the poet and ask him what he was writing about. Because you could, you know what I'm saying? Ideology is so grand and big and ambiguous that we could run off tangents very fast because we thinking within ourselves, personal thoughts, you know?
And I guess to the poetry part is it's good, and I guess you could just extrapolate that out to the rest of any problem or anything. Is it's probably good to have sometimes 20 different interpretations because you can connect.
Yeah.
You can connect themes. Like, okay, maybe your interpretation is that, maybe yours is that, A, B, C, D, and they're all kind of interwoven together. There is a theme that runs through them all. Because I love that same kind of thing. Like, I love, you talk about going home and Googling what somebody says and researching it more. It's like you don't want that conversation to end. It's like you want it to keep going. Like, hey, let's keep this going. You tell me what you know. I'm going to tell you what I found out and what I know. And hey, let's get there together. Wherever this journey is going to go. Maybe the conversation never ends. Maybe it just hits a wall and you never have any real conclusion. But it's that what I'm hearing from you is, whether it's advice or not, is, and you clearly are saying you're this type of person, is ask a lot of questions and ask them passionately. Yeah. Like spend 4, 5, 6 hours on one topic, one question. That's kind of how I approach conversations with people. I don't like being misunderstood. Right. It's kind of been a I don't know, curse of my whole life, is like, you know, I say something and it's just completely misunderstood. And I'm like, hey, I'll spend 10 minutes on one sentence if it means that that you're going to understand really what I meant. And that, you know, like, so that we're communicating. And it's like you going back and wanting to keep that conversation going, is it keeps you going, and then you get to move on to something else, right? True. Like, okay, I did that one. Like, now you're going to learn so many other things, like you said, about 4, 5, 6 hours of just researching one topic, but you're going to learn a dozen other things, and you're never going to run out of things to learn, which I think is just, that's been the revelation for me, is just like, whoa, this connectivity, the internet, YouTube, whatever, is I'm never going to run out of information, and I'm never going to run out of people to talk and that are going to teach me things that I have no idea what the heck they're talking about. Right. But you've opened up some new doors. Right. I'm not about to like plow through them, but I'm going to crack them open. I'm going to look in there. I'm like, I don't have time for you yet. Right. But I'm going to go back to you someday. I'm going to go down there. It's like whenever I feel like I've run out of songs to listen to, I'm like, I've heard all these great songs. I don't think there's any more out there. And then I discover a whole new artist. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's so much out there. And you should never stop asking questions. And don't take our leaders or our popes or our politicians or local leader, whoever it is, don't take their words. They don't know anything. Like you said, like your parents didn't know God or Jesus. Like they didn't know anything.
And what they know, they're going to hide it from you, because if I know so much and these thing here helps me elevate myself through the greed and the bad-mindedness of mankind, if somebody find $1 million, most likely they're not coming to share it in the ghetto. They rather keep it for themselves and have the bigger house, have the bigger ride, have the most food. So it's something inclined within our genetics. And I'm saying that we have encoded ourselves with, even back in the day, where somebody have to have a better hairstyle, or, you know, even in Egypt, even though somebody had probably a mantle on, Somebody had to have a sash to show of their higher level, their nobility. You know what I'm saying? So whenever we go in whatever society, there's always mankind that want to be on the top tier. You know what I'm saying? To control the other ones. That's why we got the allegorical teachings that the churches at 324 AD, 325 AD have reformed. The guy Constantine you hear about, he made a full circle on Christianity as to what should the churches teach. Okay, you cannot say from Ethiopia and the gnosis, you know what I'm saying, of knowing. You cannot say none of these things no more. Jesus is not real. No, he's real. So when you check it out, is what we have in the Bible today is just a compilation of Constantine and his archbishops and his committee at the 324, 325 AD Nicene conference. So when you check it out, is, you know, we got to know that they know a lot, but they're not going to enlighten us, because if they enlighten us as they are enlightened, then somehow all our eyes are open. We figure out, well, we don't need you anymore. So if you got all this concealed information as to how to govern life, or what life is really about, I don't think too much. That's the power of life and the knowledge. It's the true knowledge. Well, knowledge is truth. But I would say the knowledge that the leaders have, they keep it from the people and find themselves now putting different philosophies and different ideologies so people could feed on. It's like eating the chicken and then throwing out the bone for 4 or 5 dogs, knowing that you got 4 dogs, 1 bone. Most likely, they're not going to break it and be like, let's share the bone. They're going to fight their way out. Some growling. They're going to bite each other because 1 bone, 4 dogs. And they know that. The leader, that the owner for the dogs, knew that when he threw 1 bone out, those dogs going to fight for that 1 bone. The leaders know if they don't give you information and feed you something else, we could create chaos amongst these things right here, while we got the true knowledge up in this society as to how mankind should live. The allegory should not be taken on a realistic level, and we should know. But because people don't know, and they will tell you about their Lord, Savior, Jesus Christ, and all of this stuff, and then when they ask me who is Jesus, I say just a name. There was a man that walked the earth? Probably, most likely not. Because history, as I say, Jesus 2,000 years ago, I could go back 6,000, 10,000 years and show you artifacts and be like, hey, this was way before Jesus. It's still existing. This guy, Jesus, is supposed to be the top celebrity of every nation. He supposedly went to Europe, India. He was in Africa. He was so-called born in Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? Where at least a sandal, something leave back.
It doesn't make sense. Like, it's so obvious it doesn't make sense.
Agenda, so he's not real.
You know, I think, and that's, and there's a very reasonable case to make for, like, hey, that didn't happen. Like, it's really pretty. I think I was about 9 or 10 years old of going to church. You know, parents are like, you have to go to church. We're going to church. I was like, okay. But I was around 9 or 10 years old, and I was like, none of this makes sense. I really figured out that young. I was like, this isn't good. And then, of course, over the years, I'm like, right, I really don't need this. But I love churches because they're beautiful buildings. And I hadn't been to a church service in a couple of years until 2 weeks ago. Went into a nice church, just like, I love this old building. I wanted the church service. And I'm like, and I was very curious to see, all right, I haven't been here in a while. Has the message changed at all? Are they teaching anything new? Or are they still teaching that same stuff that I figured out when I was 9 years old was kind of just hogwash? Right. Sure enough, man, I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is the same crap. Like, you guys got to update. Like, you can't be saying this stuff anymore. And there's no enthusiasm. There's no love. Like, it's just people just mouthing words and they don't know what the words mean. They're not thinking about what they mean. It's just, this is what I was taught to do. This is what my leaders told me to do, and I'm going to keep doing it. And they told me this is the truth. This is the source of knowledge, and they're holding on to it. And while you were talking, it made me think of, knowledge is power. Like, that's one of those cliches, but, knowledge is a dangerous power. Like, too much knowledge, like Constantine, like, they ripped pages out of these texts and like, no, let's not put that in the Bible. No, let's change these words here. We don't want these people to know all this stuff. So it's like those type of religious leaders, we should be very cautious of. If you read the history of the Bible, like not the Bible, but the history of the Bible and all the sources, it's just sourced from innumerable places. Like they just stole stories from everywhere.
Sumerian text, the Dark Vader,
the pagans, just the old, like they just stole so many. They just repackaged it, right?
Because even Christianity, I'm talking bishops and all of that stuff. Sometimes they don't even want to talk to atheists, because atheists, as you know, anti-God, whatever it is. But Christianity started off as an atheist kind of, and I'm not talking true Christianity, I'm talking about Rome Christianity, which is kind of like a twist of Christianity, which is Christendom. So, make a kingdom out of Christ. So they haven't, I would say, teach the real form of Christianity, but they have created Christendom to get the people kind of, as I say, religiously misled.
It's corruption of the original idea. Yeah. Because the idea of Jesus is beautiful. Like that idea of that's the kind of person you should strive to be, but that gets lost.
But that's why I say the idea of Jesus is Horus.
Right.
Even the Pope himself go and bow to the Black Madonna and Child, which is Horus and Osiris. So it's, as I say, it's 100 of years. The Pope, it can be proven. There's pictures on the internet. You know what I'm saying? They go and pay patronage to the Black Madonna and Child. It's not nothing else than just Osiris and Horus. So along the line, Cain and Abel is set and Osar, because when you hear about Cain killing his brother, it's not nothing about Cain killing his brother. It's Set, Cetek, killing his brother, which is Horus' dad, Osiris' husband. So when you check it out, is these story, they've been taken out, put in different contexts. Adam and Eve, none of that happened. Paradise, the whole meaning of paradise from the Hellenic era to before, it's a different meaning. It's just a lot. Deception has gone on, and they have formulated ways. So as I said, distract us, religious wise, academic wise, all those ologies that we study today, they have taken the true aspect of that and put it in their so-called academic planning, academic curriculum. But all of these things, as I say, we were doing that long time ago. And I will always stick to that fact is biology, chemistry, astrology, astronomy. The Egyptians studied that way before the people of Mesopotamia. The same Sanskrit you're hearing about. It's not yesterday, but I've been here before them. The Phoenicians you're hearing about, I've been here before them. And when you hear about these people too, a lot of people always think like, oh, because they were Greek or whatever, they were white. Even in that time, darker races, Africans from the West Coast, Ethiopia, Egypt, went through Greece. If you look at Greece, art and the history, black people were prominent in there. If you go to Spain, you hear about morena. Morena just means black, woman, female version of black. So at the end of the day, it's the Moors governed Europe for 700 years or more. When I say govern, not just lightly governing, bringing in cultures, bringing in art, bringing in music, bringing in all of education,
the architecture,
Salamanca,
the Moorish architecture, some of the most beautiful stuff you can ever see.
So, we know, but if you don't know as who you are, then it's just ridiculous. You'll be going down, say, that rabbit hole from the start. You're going down that hole, searching through somebody else's lens. As Marcus Garvey said, you know what I'm saying? We got to look at God and ourselves through our own spectacles. So unless you, as a black man, or unless you as a Chinaman going and look at Jesus, which is not our thing per se, because before Jesus we had Horus and Isis. So if you were leaving your culture to get forgiven by a God that is not real, then you living for the authorities that set that law for you, because they know so you're going to vanish in vain, because you're just going to pay your bills, pay your necessities of life, which is their taxation and whatever it is, for your survival. When you could go in the woods and live and don't get taxed and do whatever. But to some people it's hard life. They would not prefer to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's not like I personally haven't done it. I've done it years, and I could do it more. It's
living in the woods?
Living in the woods. You know what I'm saying?
It's a very attractive lifestyle.
Not just camping in a weekend. It couldn't be better. It feels like it's harder work, but these are the things you got to do. Dig up, plant, eat. That's all what it takes. You weed your plants 3 months most. You get vegetables and fruits. So everything, as I say, it's governed by the galaxies again, which mean the astrology. Because with the sun at every different points or seasons of the year, the sun is either closer, further away, brighter, and whatever it is. So when we find ourselves going on 12-12 or 12 to 16, 18 hours of darkness or light sometimes, it's because the earth is not doing it for our benefit only. It's because of the vegetation that's around us, which governs the powers of life around. The trees sucking in our carbon dioxide, giving us oxygen. The leaf transpiring, the sun sucking it up. It goes up there, we sweating going up there, and it fall back down that rain. You know what I'm saying? It's all, as I say, it's from first. It's all that connection. So we don't need a jacket and tie. We don't need Wall Street. We don't need none of that, because with all of that we have, the world is not really a better place. You know what I'm saying? It's just a place of survival. It's not even a place where we live anymore. See, so much of people being born, and they weren't born to hate or do nothing of destruction, but they grew up watching TV, reading books, learning from other people, and all the other ways of education that they have encountered through their life. And now today they are whatever they are. But we didn't born to be killers or born to be professors. It's, as I say, it's the manifestation of what's within you. A lot of things within you. Your higher self within you, your lower self within you. Which one you're going to make control you? Or generally, which one we going to make control us? Our higher self or our lower self? And the world decide to make the lower self be more prominent. You know what I'm saying? But I will always keep my higher self. So when they see me, even as right now, talking as passionate as I do, it's because I love what I do. I love myself within, even with certain insecurities as a man of flesh. I love myself and I'm confident within myself. You know what I'm saying? So when people be saying whatever they saying, it doesn't really distract me or, as I say, get under my skin. Because I could just find it up and be like, well, that's what you think. And a man's opinion, he's entitled to it. A man's suggestion, he's entitled to it. But the truth, everyone is entitled to that. Not just you alone. know what I'm saying? Your point of view is a speck to what the truth is. And the truth is not sometimes one big picture. The white people got the truth, the black people got the truth, the China man got the truth, the Indian man got the truth. Because as I say, is we all talking the same thing in a different land, different place. So we all got the truth. We just not piecing it together to find the ultimate truth about ourselves as human beings on this earth.
Kareem, I think that's a great place to stop. And you and I are going to do this again in the future. And we're going to, you know some stuff. So we're going to target some talks next time, like specific topics. Because I have about 30 questions in my head. And 30 different ways we could go with this. But this has been fun.
Yeah, man.
I'm going to go home. I'm going to smoke some weed. I'm going to read my particle physics book.
Right.
See if I could understand any of that, which I won't. But it expands my mind. It puts me in touch with whatever this world is made of. And it's made of us, too. It's made of people. And I love these kind of conversations because they really ground me.
E equals MC squared, you know?
Is that all I need to know?
That's all you need to know about life. Because
No, because that was probably discovered before Einstein. We just forgot it, like you pointed out.
Before Einstein.
Yeah.
You know? But at the end of the day, it's good that he came and let us know. It's energy. Everything within us is our energy. You know what I'm saying?
Mass, energy, light.
So we all know that. When it comes to that, Einstein was bold enough to put a formula to it. And it hasn't been disproven. Not that I'm a big fan of Einstein, but at the end of the day, the truth is the truth. And whoever's saying the truth, if you like the truth, you just go with the truth. It doesn't matter who's saying it. It's if they're saying the truth is the truth. That's just what it is.
We are two minds of different people, man. I love truth. Yeah, I love truth. And I don't care the source. Just tell me what the truth is. Yep. Tell me honestly. And I'll take it from there.
Right.
All right, brother. This has been great.
Yeah, man.
All right, man. Let's do this again.
Yeah. So
all right.
Just let me know what's up, man.
Goodbye, world. This has been Kareem. What's your last name?
Right. Well, I go by Ihiem, you know. Acronym for I and I, the son of His Imperial Eternal Majesty.
Oh, God. That's so beautiful. I have such a corny white boy name. Doug. But it works.
It works.
It works.
The name is
all right.
name, you know.
Thank you.